Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Just a Few. My name is Patrick Antwine, and I take this opportunity to thank you once again for your source of encouragement. Maybe you have never made a comment to any of the social media platforms. Please make use of the opportunity to give some sort of feedback or encouragement. It's always a blessing, not just to me, to anyone who is in this form of ministry. You never know who's on the other side of the camera watching. So if you have never place a comment there, here's an opportunity for you to say hi or to just say how this ministry has been impacting you. This is a ministry that allows me the opportunity to provide biblical responses to questions from people just like you, and I always welcome questions. So if you have one and you think that you want me to provide a response, please feel free to use the email address on the screen and submit your question there preferably, and I will try to provide you with a response as soon as possible. Let's get to today's question. The question has to do with a statement that people often make, and you may have heard it before, and the questioner wants to know, is this biblical? The question is, where in the Bible does it teach God helps those who help themselves? And this is not a hard question to respond to, but it's a good question because it's one of several questions or statements, that you hear people make, because it sounds like something you'll find in the Bible. So a few others that I've thought about in preparing this response one is charity begins at home. It sounds biblical, but that's not in the Bible. Cleanliness is next to godliness. That might be true, but it's not taught clearly in the Bible. You see, the Jewish people in the Old Testament, they're involved in a lot of cleanliness and so on, but it's not, that statement is not in the Bible. Then there's this last one: don't do to others what you do not want them to do to you. And that sounds like something Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount and so on, but that's not what he said. He said it in the positive. This statement is in the negative. So this statement is not in the Bible. So I want you to rest assured that you can search from Genesis to Revelation, and you would not come across anything remotely resembling that statement that God helps those who help themselves. And we hear it quite often, I guess, but it's not biblical. And some people will say it and they'll say, the Bible say God helps those who help themselves. No, it doesn't. The reason for that is you would not find it is because the Bible doesn't have that written anywhere in it. So while some people may want to classify this as a noble saying, it's still not a biblical saying. It is a fact that a statement does not have to be biblical to be true. But there are many things in the Bible that point to this declaration as not always being true. That's not always true, that God helps those who help themselves. And so I'll give you 3 examples in the Bible that shows us that there are people who could not help themselves and God helped them. One is blind Bartimaeus, and his story, I can't read all the verses because of time, is found in Mark chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. He was this blind beggar. Jesus did not help him because he was helping himself. Jesus helped him because his compassion for this blind man, he reached out to him and healed him. The 10 lepers, their story is told in Luke 17 from verse 11 to 19. They did not try their best to get well and delivered from leprosy, and then Jesus saw that they were trying to help themselves, and then he tells them, okay, good, you guys are trying to get better, let me heal you. No, they were not trying anything, and they were not helping themselves, yet they were healed. And then in John 11, from verse 1 to 44, we have the story of Lazarus. Lazarus was in no position to help himself because he was dead, and yet Jesus raised him from the dead. So these are just 3 examples that this is not always true even in the Bible, and it's, like you said, it's not found in the Bible. So It's not that the Bible is encouraging laziness, that let's do nothing and God is going to help you. That's not what we are saying. There's such a thing in the Bible called grace, unmerited favor. And even when we sometimes don't help ourselves, even when we are not able to help ourselves, God helps us because it is His gracious nature which drives Him to help us. And listen to what Paul the Apostle says of how God functions here in Romans chapter 9, verses 15 and 16. For God says to Moses, I will have mercy on whomever I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whomever I will have compassion. So then, it is not of him who wills, or you working, nor of him who runs, but of God who shows mercy. So while nothing is wrong with diligence and seeking to help yourself if you can, to make that statement that, well, it's not in the Bible, but it suggests that God helps those who help themselves in a way that suggests that only those who help themselves are the ones who God helps. It is not biblical, and it's not something that is backed up by anything in the Bible. As we consider a person like Lazarus who was dead, it's a wonderful picture of all of humanity in the Gospels, which tells us that all of us were dead in sins. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 1 says, and you he made alive who were dead in trespasses and sins. We were not trying to save ourselves. We were not trying anything because we were dead in sin spiritually. Later on in verses 8 and 9 of Ephesians 2, it says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. So there are some things that God blesses, like diligence, He does when you attempt to help yourself. But that doesn't mean that's the only way God helps you, because God helps those who are even spiritually and physically dead by making us alive. And that's the heart of the gospel. When we were dead in sins and unable to help ourselves, God provided salvation, not of works, lest anyone should boast. And so that statement, God helps those who help themselves, it's not biblical, and it goes against the whole doctrine of grace. My name is Patrick Antwine. Thank you for the question, and may what I've shared with you enlighten you on the matter. So until the next time, grace and